One day, a man named Richard was in Puerto Rico, but he wasn't having much fun because he hadn't seen his girlfriend in 3 weeks. So Richard decided to leave the island. But when he got to the airport, he found out his flight was completely canceled. Richard was devastated. Most of the other passengers were complaining, and some were starting to leave, giving up their hope of ever getting off the island. But instead of joining them, Richard decided to sit down and think. He thought to himself, what if I just rented a plane of my own to go see my girlfriend? That's a great idea, but where am I gonna get the money to do that, he thought. He was able to make a sign that said one way to Virgin Islands. To his surprise, enough people paid money for the seats on the plane in order for him to cover the cost. He even ended up making a bit of a profit, and that's when Richard Branson knew he should start Virgin Airlines. Today, we're gonna walk through Richard Branson's life and figure out exactly what he did in order to be successful. Stay tuned. Now let's take a little walk through the park of Richard Branson's life. Initially, starting out, he had some interesting businesses. His first one, in fact, was selling Christmas trees. And not just in the way that you would think. He grew Christmas trees from the seeds. That takes a lot of time, dedication, no matter how old you are. Problem was, he had some competition, but not in the way that you would think. These 4-legged creatures ate most of his Christmas tree seedlings, and he got some payback. I would be pretty upset too. Despite this first business happening, Richard went on to start a magazine. See, in high school he dropped out because he had dyslexia, making reading and writing extremely difficult. But instead of letting that define him, he decided to start a company. Now this student magazine was a huge hit and eventually led him to create Virgin Records. He signed artists like this, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube, Pistols,
What did he say?
and Culture Club. This was really his first big success. Richard then had some ups and downs in other companies and led him to start Virgin Airlines, Virgin Mobile, which I have had this phone when I was a kid.
Looks pretty neat.
But also Virgin Galactic, which is pretty sick. Now, to be honest, I felt like I left there without knowing too much. So I decided to go to my school in order to learn a little bit more. Now, what are some things we can learn about Richard Branson? Well, in his book, Screw It, Let's Do It, he has some amazing points. The first one that we'll talk about is learning from doing. He said when you learn to walk, you don't learn by sitting, you learn by doing it, falling over, and then figuring it out. Next, he says one of the most, think about this, light bulb moment, the most important thing in work is having fun. If you can have fun, he said, the money will come later. Huge thing for me, I've started businesses that were not fun, and lo and behold, didn't really go anywhere because I wasn't enjoying myself. That's advice that we like to hear. And then the last point is the beginning of the work is the most important. I heard Sam Ovens talk about this with ad sets, having initial conditions go a certain way is extremely important. One thing I want to say is we are trying to pass Richard Branson in subscribers. The reason we're trying to do that is so we can interview him and ask him personally what his secret to success is. If you want to see us win, feel free to subscribe. Let's get back into the video. Being at school sparked something. Maybe going back to Richard Branson's early days would help me learn more. Wow, incredible. Well, just how he left it. I want you to put yourself in Richard Branson's shoes. You're 16 and you just dropped out of high school. What? Now, why would you do that? In his own words, Richard Branson said, I was the dumbest person at school. The idea of being successful didn't dawn on me. That's wild. But he started this magazine and shortly found success. Soon, what was Student Magazine evolved into Virgin Records. This is powerful because the newspaper really allowed him to express the contrary ideas to what the UK was experiencing at the time. It's interesting how the magazine parlayed that's always been the spirit of Richard Branson, is to kind of be contrarian and really never afraid to express his views, which I think is really cool. Now, what is Richard Branson doing now? His latest business is Virgin Galactic. He wants space tourism to be the norm for anyone. The cool thing about Virgin Galactic is you can actually buy stock. I bought some stock, but I recently sold it. I maybe should have promoted it on this channel and then sold it. Guys, relax, just kidding. No, I'm not gonna do that. There's one point I wanna make here, and it's choose your mentors wisely.
Yes, sir.
One thing I absolutely adore about Richard Branson is he's so well-rounded. He's like if Leonardo da Vinci time traveled to now and got really obsessed with business. Some people are just obsessed with making more and more money, but when you look at Richard Branson's life, it's obvious that he's just an adventurer. Now, there's a lot of people in the world that are just obsessed with making as much money as possible, but when you look at Richard Branson's life and what he's done, it's obvious that he's just following where his heart's leading him. He's an adventurer. But one thing's for certain is you have to know yourself. You have to know your risk tolerance. Not everyone can do what Richard Branson has done. Now we all have to push our limits. Why am I in a parking garage? Well, I thought to myself, what is the sketchiest thing I could do? If I were to tee one up in the parking garage, that would arguably be the most dangerous thing that I could do, personally. Maybe not for everyone, but for me, that is the sketchiest thing I could think of. But you have to pick risks wisely. Probably not gonna do this. No, I won't. I really shouldn't. Richard Branson crossed the Atlantic Ocean in his free time. There's been times where he's almost died from doing some extreme sport, extreme stunt. He just loves it for the thrill. It's okay if you're not like that. Keep that in mind, but it's inspiring for anyone. He says, if you're not gonna take risks, you're not gonna achieve anything. I've learned that the hard way sometimes. Being in that parking garage gave me a lot of insight, but to be honest, I still felt like there was something missing. So I decided to go back to where it all started, in Puerto Rico during the inception of Virgin Airlines. I could not make a video on Richard Branson if I didn't talk about this story. All right, now you're on vacation. You're on this island. You haven't seen your girlfriend in 3 weeks, or if you're a girl watching this, your boyfriend, you want to see him. So it's time to leave the island, but there's a tropical storm coming and every commercial flight / boat is gridlocked, meaning you're not going anywhere. Now this is the definition of winning. When everyone else is in their limbic system, they're in their animal mind, oh my gosh, find cover, find shelter, find safety. Richard Branson doesn't do that. With asking himself this idea of how, he went up to some wealthy people on the island, said, hey, I'm chartering a plane, a seat costs this much, do you want to buy a ticket? And that was the start of Virgin Airlines. That's insane. But just that thought of like having enough ability in your own thinking power to not allow your animal brain to get the best of you, that is winning.
Oh God.
That is success. I mean, that's it, guys. That is literally the definition of winning. And that's exactly why we're trying to pass Richard Branson in subscribers. If we can pass him in subscribers, then maybe we can do an interview with him in person on this channel. I could not do this alone. Hit that subscribe button and maybe we'll do it. As you can tell, I don't have a lot of subs right now, but I think we can make this happen. Hey, check out these other videos that I think you'll love.